The Iceberg meme format covers rumors or spooky urban legends about a topic or franchise in descending order of depth. The idea is that most will know the higher levels, but the deeper we get, the more surprises pop out. I know that I'm about a year late to the party, but I meant to cover this back in January when I was working on the killer tier list, so here, another patented Pebsie video essay. The DBD Iceberg Explained. There have been several icebergs created and posted online, but the best one, in my humble opinion, is this one created by That One Dwight on the OK Buddy Daylight subreddit. It's a little outdated, but then again, so is this as a concept for a video. Let's start with level 1. Candyman. Okay, what a great one to start on. In May and June of 2020, the DBD community went fully alive with the rumors of Chapter 16 being licensed. Those rumors ended up being correct, as Chapter 16 ended up being Silent Hill, but the running theory at the time was Candyman. There were two real clues as to why. One of the community managers saying the DBD 4th anniversary would be pretty sweet, and the official Discord changing its name to Dead Be Daylight. The link to Candyman is the poster for 2020's reboot film having just been released, showing a hook with honey on it. This was a big deal at the time, and I remember pretty much everyone was expecting Candyman. It sounds ridiculous now. No one has even mentioned this license crossover in months. But there you go. There was a time when we all rewatched 1992's Candyman just in case. Candyman 2020 would eventually be delayed to 2021 due to release on the 27th of August. So, Candyman chapter in August? Ash chapter leaked. Chapter 12.5, or paragraph 3, was the Evil Dead DLC. We knew this months beforehand because somehow the perks were added to kill your friends around March 2019, a full month before the update would release. Whoopsie. Pretty good job so far. Dead by Daylight is known for its bugs that are game-breaking and yet take months to fix, a consistent lack of new game mechanics, excluding killers, which, let's be honest for a minute, must be a phenomenal amount of work to keep up with 4 times a year. So this clip of Matthew Cote, DBD's game director, saying,
I think we did a pretty good job so far,
has been memed endlessly.
I think we've done a pretty good job so far.
Oh, yes.
Instasaw. The Instasaw refers to an old Billy build where you take the carburetor tuning guide and the now decommissioned Thompson's mix. These both affected the chainsaw charge time, allowing for an essentially instant chainsaw proc. This hasn't been possible since the Oldham Pass Billy had in 4.1.0, released July 2020. Boop the Snoot. The pig was the first killer that could crouch, leading to this meta of players booping the snoot, that is, pointing at the pig and tapping their nose. Simple as that. Springtrap. Springtrap is a character from the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, and I believe this is in the Iceberg because he's one of the most heavily requested killers in the game. There's even a change.org petition with 63,000 signatures. Damn. Dedicated servers. Until mid-February 2020, Dead by Daylight didn't have dedicated servers. This meant that the killer was considered the host and all the players connected to them in a peer-to-peer manner. This was probably done to save server costs and is simultaneously what allows old games like Modern Warfare 2 to still have games running, but also why every single game of Modern Warfare 2 is a hacker lobby. The original implementation of dedicated servers was very poorly done, and they still haven't quite gotten it right, if I'm honest. It's a janky, desync is still an issue, and often things that happen are weird and delayed. Objectively speaking, though, from a technical standpoint, this is much preferred to peer-to-peer servers. DBD Mobile. Dead by Daylight Mobile was announced in June of 2019. It wouldn't release for another 9 months, but that time felt like an absolute age. I'm not sure if its inclusion here is because of all the rumors surrounding its eventual release, or if it's because it felt like it took so long, even though in game dev terms, it really didn't take that long, but here you go. Spirit Fury Enduring. Spirit Fury is a spirit perk that, after breaking 2 pallets, instantly breaks the next pallet you're stunned with. The stun duration still applies. Enduring, meanwhile, is a Billy perk that reduces the duration of pallet stuns by 50%, from 2 seconds down to 1 second. Together, as you can imagine, these perks wreak absolute havoc. Haddon Fence. Did you know that you can hit over the fence on Haddonfield? A lot of killers don't, a lot of survivors don't. Now you do. Nice one. Old Ruin. Old Ruin was ridiculously overpowered and frustrating to play against. If you were working on a generator while it was active and were faced with a skill check, you'd need to hit a grate or the generator would freeze for a few seconds. Nightmare. It was used in pretty much every game. I think the exact stat was about 95%, and often you'd need to find a totem before starting on any gens, no matter what rank you were. It was great for slowdown and honestly pretty great for forcing you to learn to hit great skill checks, but it was an absolute bastard to play against, and I'm personally glad it's gone. Here's an old favorite clip of mine from Switch. Nightmare. Sanctum of Wrath statues. The statues in Sanctum of Wrath turn to face you when they're off screen. It's a subtle little detail and it's creepy as hell. I love it. God palette. This is the God palette. Do not drop it at the start of the game or camp it when being chased. Please! When down, it makes Killer Shack only an A tier loot, but when it's up, it has potential to be an infinite. If you suck at chasing, leave it for another teammate. Sometimes, in fact, it's even better to get downed than it is to drop it. Please be careful. Freddy rework. Remember when Freddy was one of the worst, if not the worst killers in the game? Yeah. In July of 2019, he had a total power rework, and the meta hasn't been the same since. It was a good move, and a good piece of design, if a little over-engineered, and, in need of another nerf, please. And finally, Legacy. Legacy skins exist for Dwight, Meg, Claudette, Jake, Nia, Trapper, Wraith, Billy, and Nurse. These are awarded to players who prestige these characters before patch 1.3.0, where grinding to prestige was made considerably easier. They are no longer attainable and never will be, so if you see someone, like our boy Halsey16 here, with a Legacy skin, you know that they're an OG player. It's time to go a level deeper. Level 2 holds some still clear but perhaps forgotten things from Dead by Daylight's past. Let's take a trip down memory lane. Old brand new parts and flashlights. Old brand new parts would repair generators instantly. Take a look at this clip which shows just how ridiculously abusable old BMPs were. Now onto flashlights. Right now, when blinded, the screen has a nice little animation that pulses like your eyes are closed. It also takes a short time to blind a killer, even with the best add-ons, and it's rare that you can't look away in time unless an animation, like picking up a survivor, is blocking your ability to turn. Old flashlights, however, were not only near instantaneous, but would totally white out your screen.
That's a fast flashlight.
Nia is the entity. This is a long-running meme. Asimov's has done the best video on it ever, and I really recommend you check his video out. I can't say anything here that he hasn't said better in his video. Go watch it, link in the description. It's genuinely compelling.
Nia is typically referred to as the entity due to her soulless eyes, drab fashion sense, and often high levels of toxicity.
The Smasher. The Smasher was an early killer in the game that could destroy walls and buildings. He was removed because the devs realized it'd be extremely tough to balance a killer that could destroy every asset on the map. The Teacher. The Teacher was a killer referenced in the game files ahead of the first chapter. The Trapple, a survivor item, Detention, a killer power, and Underperform, a killer perk, were all added in assets. As the Chapter 1 killer ended up being the Nurse, it's believed that these were added as a joke or as a red herring to disguise what they were actually working on. They do that a lot. It's kind of a big part of the way they engage with the community. Decisive Dribbling. Once upon a time, the Decisive Strike skill check would only trigger after being picked up by the killer rather than during the animation. There was roughly a 2 to 3 second window in which the killer could move forward before the skill check would proc. As a result of this, you could block the effect of the perk by continually picking up and putting down the survivor, each time making a little bit more progress towards the hook. Benedict Baker. Benedict Baker is a survivor referenced in the game's lore via his journal entries. Like the other survivors, he's stuck in the endless trial cycle, but in spite of that, we've never actually seen him. We don't even have a face to put to the name. Space Billy. If you hit certain heals at just the right angle with Billy, you can go flying. Moon Bouquets. Moon Bouquets were offerings that allowed you to increase or decrease the brightness of the moon in-game. This would affect the entire trial, allowing you to make the map super bright or super dark. They were removed as the devs wanted more control of how each realm was lit. Midwich Elementary Easter egg. This could refer to any number of Easter eggs in the Midwich map. There's the girl crying in the toilet stall. This relatively unknown passageway that requires breakable walls to be destroyed to get to. The classic jump scare locker corpse. but it most likely refers to the clock tower's secret chest room. This can be activated like so. Step 1, repair the generator in the chemistry lab. Step 2, repair the generator in the music room. Step 3, trigger the endgame collapse. And there you have it, the secret clock tower chest room. Z Wall Infinite, or Z Wall Infinite, depending on your politics. If the killer is dumb enough, then Z Walls can actually be used as infinites, as shown in this video by SoggyBread984. Insta-heals. The Styptic Agent and Anti-Hemorrhagic Syringe are medkit add-ons that apply endurance and auto-heal after 16 seconds. Prior to patch 3.3.0, however, they would instantly heal you for 1 health state. The room in Badham Boiler Room. Within the Badham Boiler Room is this hidden section with an altar and a drawing of a child and a crying adult. PTB Legion. Legion had just come out when I started playing, and I'd heard the rumors play against the Legion and the whole team DCs. This was because deep wounds used to not go down during chases. Right now, as a long-standing bodge fix, they don't go down when running. That might sound fine, but if the killer had his back turned when following a survivor, it wouldn't count as a chase, and therefore all the Legion had to do was strike once and then follow until the survivor's timer ran out and they dropped. Broken as hell. More than one killer. There was a glitch for a while where you could force 2 killers in a game in customs, and occasionally you'd spawn into a public match of 2 killers too. Hilarious, broken, and long since patched out. Leatherface was rushed. Leatherface is the only full non-paragraph chapter that's come out without a new map or a new survivor. He launched with a new realm, Grim Pantry, but this was mostly built up of assets already existing in Blackwater Swamp. Blackwater? I keep wanting to call it Blackwater because there's a Ratchet & Clank planet called Blackwater. Backwater. B-A-C-K. Backwater, not Blackwater. It's been suggested too that they literally copied and pasted Hillbilly's code with only a few tweaks, which is why they share so many add-ons. There's also the trailer, which is considerably lower effort than every other trailer, although in my opinion still pretty damn cool. Whether or not this is true is actually unknown and doesn't affect my love for Bubba, but it was a concern and a point of discussion at the time. A Mega Blink Nurse. Before 3.3.0, the Nurse add-ons Ataxic Respiration and Catatonic Poise Treasure allowed you to considerably and moderately increase maximum blink range, that is, by 20% and 15% respectively. This allowed you to blink across almost half the entire map, and were impossible add-ons to counter. CJ Tag. Because the pick up survivor and break pallet actions are bound to the same key, you can force a killer to pick up a survivor and blind them, causing them to drop the survivor. You do this by dropping the pallet with the survivor on the killer's side, then vaulting the pallet as the killer taps space to destroy the pallet. A pallet being vaulted cannot be destroyed, however, so the action changes to pick up survivor. You then vault the pallet back and turn on your beamer. PTB Metal of Man. Metal of Man used to protect you from your next hit from injured to dying after getting hit 3 times. Not protection hits, that is, just regular hits. The caveat is that when active, your aura would be revealed to the killer after healing until you were next downed. So obviously, you'd just 99 your heal and then go about business as usual until in a chase. Whoops. Window tech. The window tech is when you vault a window in a chase and then crouch next to it. As the killer vaults the window, their vision is obscured, allowing you to run back and slow vault the window totally out of sight of the killer. It used to be quite the meta play, as the killer's collision box would stay on the other side of the window until fully vaulted. This isn't the case anymore though, and hasn't been for a while. The killer's collision is now on the other side of the window from the start of the animation, making it significantly harder, if not impossible, unless the killer's paying literally 0 attention, like me, to pull off. DBD on Stadia. DBD is on Stadia! Not sure why this is on the list, to be honest. Maybe it had only just been announced. So instead, here's a fun fact. Stadia is still the only platform with working cross-progression, despite cross-progression for Switch to Steam being announced in July of last year. Maybe one day. Carl! Hey, who's this? It's Carl the cashier. Carl the... Who? What? He's the cashier fella what gets stabbed by Ghostface in the Ghostface trailer. This is actually somehow the first time I've ever noticed that this trailer is CG. I genuinely thought this was live action. Whoops. Level 3 takes us towards old, forgotten content. And also Burger King Myers. How do you make an arguably weak killer even weaker? By combining two add-ons that make him extremely slow. Judith's Tombstone slows movement speed by 9%, and Vanity Mirror slows movement speed by 7%. Oh, yeah, you also aren't allowed to stalk anyone either, meaning that you're stuck in tier 1. That means no lunge and a 4.2 meters per second movement speed, reduced to 3.52 meters per second thanks to our add-ons. That's actually slower than the slowest killer in the game, the Nurse, who moves at 3.85 meters per second.
Bro, I am legit slower than a fucking nurse. Little Fang?
Beta Plague audio. Originally, the Plague had considerably grosser audio, with her retching as the vomit fills her mouth during a charge. Survivor climbing. In the earliest versions of DBD, there were plans to allow survivors to climb. This was originally prototyped as having slants on the walls of loops that allowed survivors to climb up and escape, but killers would have to go around, sort of like a third advantage mechanic alongside pallets and windows. A remnant of this is still visible today on the roof of the killer's shack where a hole is opened. It was ultimately scrapped because it was too hard to implement and led to balance issues. Unused maps. There are a few maps that are referenced in the game's code but not available to play on. These are the Minnie and Seb's Dream variants of Macmillan Estate, the Infinite Gym variant of Crotus Pren, the Facility variant of Haddonfield, most likely a reference to the facility that Myers is kept in, the Dead Lake, Grim Gully, and Mound variants of Backwater Swamp, and finally the Shack variant of Ormond. Bunny Tech. The Bunny Tech just means to disconnect. That's literally it. According to this Reddit post from 3 years ago, it was named after a player called Bunny who lurked in stream chats, but it's impossible to search Bunny DBD without just getting the Feng or Legion skin, so there you go, that's what the Bunny Tech is. Blackwater Swamp, negative aura. Something about the Blackwater Swamp map makes people angry. It's often cited as being one of the most hated maps for both roles. It's dark and your footsteps are squishy. Perhaps this hatred comes from something deeper in the game. The negative aura caused perhaps by something paranormal? Or it's just dark, unbalanced for both roles in different ways, and as a result, extremely frustrating to play on, whichever you think is more fun. Decisive Strike was never nerfed. I think the Decisive Strike is the one perk that's gone through the biggest number of changes over the years, or certainly the most in terms of, like, quantity of changes. It's been altered at least once every single year since the game's release. The original DS nerf changed it from requiring a high wiggle progression when not the obsession to being active only after being unhooked. But it can be argued this wasn't really a nerf. It made it much more useful for players who weren't the obsession, and over time, it found itself becoming one of only a few long-standing meta perks. My conclusion? Survivor mains will complain about anything. I should know, after all, I'm one of them. PTB Kate Scream. Kate Denson was added to the game alongside the Clown in patch 2.0.0 or Chapter 8 Curtain Call. In the PTB, Meg Scream was a little over the top, with the community dubbing it the Ghoul Scream. Have a listen. Meg and Claudette swapped races. In the original version of the game, this was Claudette and this was Meg. Iron Will is bugged. Sometimes Iron Will doesn't work and you still make noise even though you have it equipped. Although, then again, this might be due to Strider. I can't find anything else about this, so I'm just gonna say it's probably people getting confused about the effect of Strider, which is something I covered in my first Mythbusters video. I will say, however, that still, survivors sometimes won't make noises when they're on the ground. No perk, not Iron Will, nor Calm Spirit is meant to prevent survivors from moaning when in the dying state. This has been an issue since I first started playing the game in 2018, and, you know, it's probably never gonna be fixed. The game is run by Behavior Interactive. Moris were base kits. In the game's early development, it was possible to Mori a survivor whenever you wanted. No hooks necessary, no offerings. It was up to you what you decided to do. While this was changed prior to release, it wouldn't actually be until patch 1.5.3 that you were required to hook a survivor before killing them, meaning that you could get Mori'd on first down. Oh, that would have been frustrating. The entity's realm is purgatory. In the lore, the survivors and killers are partaking in endless trials for the will of the entity, a being which feeds off intense emotions, the strongest being that of hope, pain, and despair. It would make sense then to make a connection between the entity's realm and the idea of purgatory, a place where the souls of sinners go to be expiated. Legion Flashlight Tech. This one may well be fixed, but I can't find anything about it in any patch notes. Maybe I'm looking for the wrong term or whatever, but the Legion's ability, Feral Frenzy, puts survivors into the deep wound state. However, if you're blinded and vault a pallet while entering Feral Frenzy, you're able, or used to be able to, maybe, down injured survivors with it, bypassing deep wound. Old Will Make It and Self-Care. Will Make It used to increase your healing speed by 100% for each survivor you rescue, up to a maximum of 300% for 120 seconds, with the timer resetting upon each unhook. Prior to patch 1.0.2, this worked for self-healing, meaning that it worked in conjunction with self-care to allow you to heal yourself in just 6.66 seconds. Machine Gun Meta. Unrelenting reduces the cooldown of missed attacks by 30%, and Save the Best for Last used to reduce the cooldown of missed attacks by a set 20% provided your obsession was still alive. These stacked together, giving you a 50% reduced cooldown for missed attacks. Prior to patch 1.4.0, Unrelenting also reduced the cooldown of successful attacks by 22% with STBFL, giving you a 33% cooldown on successful attacks. That's a 55% reduction in successful hit cooldown, greatly reducing the distance that survivors could move after being hit before you caught up with them again. Nasty. Golden toolboxes. On most maps in the game, there's a golden toolbox hidden somewhere. These are little Easter eggs put in the game by the developers and can sometimes be extremely difficult to find, often requiring camera glitches to clip through walls to find them. Based on the DBD wiki, on the Macmillan estate, it's hidden behind a large pallet of boxes in the storehouse. On Haven, it's located between two car piles. On Colwyn, it's located in the rafters of the cowshed. On Crotus Pren, it's located underneath the caravan behind one of the wheels. On Haddonfield, it's located under a picnic table. On Backwater Swamp, it's underneath the floorboards of the Pale Rose. On Red Forest, it's in the floor in a rock circle. On Larry's, it's outside the hospital building, visible only through a hole in the wall. On Hawkins, it moves, but is known to spawn in a crate in the main lab. On Glenvale, it's inside of the water tower. And in Midwich, it's in the chemistry lab inside a mound of flesh. Hidden Hawkins Room. The devs like to add a lot of Easter eggs to Dead by Daylight, and 2019 Stranger Things chapter was no exception. Check out this secret room accessible only by the nurse, featuring doubled over corpses that appear to have met their end while chilling out and having a beer. Okay, that's certainly how I'd want to go. Of note is that the whiteboard here has the compound for gold and then the letters EGC, a hint that the map's golden toolbox would spawn only once the in-game collapse had started. One problem there, we actually found the golden toolbox before we found this, so whoops, but still a cool idea. Level 4. Brace yourself. Now we move to the realms of rumors and theories. It might get daily map rotations. There's an equal chance of getting any of Dead by Daylight's 36 maps. However, it often feels like you're playing on the same few maps during any given play session, leading some to believe that the weighing of each map changes in a daily sort of rotation to keep things fresh. While there's no concrete evidence this is the case, we do know that behavior changed the weighting for map chances when new maps or reworked maps are released, so it is theoretically possible that it isn't as random as we're led to believe. It's a phenomenon that I've personally felt as I've played the game for 4 or 5 hour stream sessions, but as always, behavior aren't transparent with how many of the server-side mechanics happen, and this is a mystery we may never have the answer to. Banshee Bob. During development, the Wraith's working name was Banshee Bob. He's still referenced in the code as both Banshee and Bob, even. DBD and Payday 2 are in the same universe. Payday 2 was developed by a team called Starbreeze Studios. You know who originally published Dead by Daylight? Starbreeze Studios. At the launch of Dead by Daylight, Payday 2 got a trapper mask, and some of DBD's demo music was composed by Simon Vickland, also the composer for Payday 2. Could it be that these two franchises are set in the same universe? Or is the publisher just promoting one game on another game for its launch and sharing talent between studios? Yeah, it's the latter, I'm afraid, but it would have been cool if it was the former. Pig's rendered face. Amanda has a fully rendered face beneath her snout. Whoa! It's probably here to make cosmetics easier. If the mask was hollow, then revealing any of the inside would be a no-no, but this way the mask can be changed as needed without having to worry about transparent angles. Huntress headshots. Due to poor ping and weird hit validation, classic DBD, sometimes the Huntress's hits would register twice and make it look as if getting a headshot can cause an insta-down. It can't. Survivor collision boxes are a pill shape with no distinction between body parts, but those first steps into shifting away from peer-to-peer to dedicated servers were clunky to say the least. They still are, really. Inconsistent timelines. Dead by Daylight's lore has a habit of being a tad inconsistent. Timelines don't match up, character motivations often don't make much sense or contradict previously established elements about that character, and the lore was strung together to fit a game that wasn't designed around story. It's fine. I like the lore. It fits its purpose, but it isn't exactly a great work of literature. Cheesy, over the top, and totally fitting of the game. Hillbilly Myers. There was a glitch in an old version of the game that allows you to equip a chainsaw onto any killer. Imagine this fella coming at you. terrifying. Wake Up was the best perk at one point. At one point, Wake Up was bugged and applied its 15% exit gate opening speed increase to most actions, including healing, unhooking, and cleansing. This is pretty significant, being 6% more than the benefit from Resilience, which applies its action speed bonus only when injured, a risk-reward sort of thing, whereas Wake Up is just reward. Pre-rework Tinkerer. Tinkerer didn't work anything like it does now, or even have a similar ability to what we know today. Until patch 2.1.0, it instead increased the effect of add-ons that alter the charge time of your power by 15%. Yeah, what the heck? That is insanely overpowered. DBD working as intended. And here we go. The rant begins. There has been no point in Dead by Daylight's history when the game has just worked. There have been major, catastrophic, game-breaking bugs in killers and perks and central mechanics that have been present since the game's very first alpha and just haven't been fixed. Each update often adds to this phenomenally unacceptable level of error, and there's a clear, gaping problem in Behaviour's QA testing method, if they employ any sort of QA testing at all. PTB's release with bugs that aren't fixed by the time their associated update releases, despite huge amounts of community outcry. The majority of chapters released in the last few years have shipped with unplayable problems. In any other game, this would be a huge deal, but it happens so frequently with Dead by Daylight that it isn't surprising anymore when the game suddenly becomes unplayable on older-gen consoles, and Behaviour don't address the situation, opting instead to fix a problem with cosmetics. Behaviour don't care about DBD. They care about it insofar as it has the ability to make them lots and lots of money, but that money is clearly not being invested back into the health of the game. That's not to say that there's no one on the team that's passionate about the title, but those individuals appear to be few and far between. Or the executives are just directing them to work on things that aren't as important, because they'll make more money. There are little things, single lines of code that could be changed that improve the game massively, but Behaviour just don't get around to it, and they never will. I don't think we'll ever see an update that actually improves things in this regard and doesn't just take a giant leap backwards. The game is consistently in a worse and worse state. It's more and more popular, but yet somehow worse and worse, bug and feature-wise. That's a real shame. If Behaviour were to sell the title to a team that actually cared for its quality rather than its quantity of content, then it really could be something even more special. Sadly, however, it's too much of a cash cow for this to ever be likely. We're stuck with these guys who make it obvious month after month that health isn't a priority. The big bucks, chapters, and cosmetics are. It's working for them too. The player base grows, its popularity grows, and they've no reason to care about making things better. Why would they? Here you are at the end of a 30-minute video about niche DBD-related topics. Here I am pouring hundreds of hours into creating content for the game. Content that just rewards this carefree, quality-lacking development structure and pushes new people into buying the game and getting invested in it. Duh. Why would they bother fixing the blatant problems inherent in the game's engine when they could just not? Just leave it out, as they have done for years and will continue to do for years. The closest thing they've ever had to a competitor died out in just a few short months. The Evil Dead game might have a shot at taking its crown, and I hope it at least makes the dev team sweat a little, but ultimately DBD will go on with mediocre health and a lack of care for quality and player experience. Yeah. DBD is working exactly as intended. It just was never intended to work properly. That's a dim note to end things on, but it's a ramble I often go on stream when I encounter yet another major bug, and one that has to be said. I don't want to just be negative, so burying it in a video essay like this is probably the best way to go. This video was a lot of fun to make, and I think that I might try and go for longer topics like this in the future when I can. A big thank you to that one Dwight for making such a great Iceberg, and of course, all of you for watching. As well as the names on screen right now, I'd like to thank my patrons Nutmeg the Fine and Spikio Pro, as well as Gem Rushers Club and Mins the Entity members, Santi Gamer, Hassock Homer, Alia E, Merciless Cheeseburger, Dave Gaming, Clem Scott, Dapper, and Chipstar878. Thank you for watching and waiting for this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bro, come here, bro, come here. Come here. I'm going wrong. I think this is where I'm going wrong.